Hello, hello, and welcome to the show because you are now tuned into a brand spanking new. That's right, Monday Night Live, aka the Hangout Stream, aka the Chill Stream, baby. All fired up, having some fun for March 13th, 2023, and brought to you by yours truly, the man broadcasting from behind the curtain. You know who I am. Because if you don't know by now, you can visit www.livefreeliverich.com or simply Google this name and you can find out. How you guys doing? Did you have a week? It was a good week, bad week? Welcome. This is my uninebriated stream. Now, that's not to insinuate that all my previous broadcasts were done under the influence. However, I will neither confirm nor deny that. So you can interpret that as you wish. Hello. Just popping in to say hi. I hope you have a great night. Well, thanks for that, Sam. Appreciate you stopping by. Let's see what we got for tonight. Lined up for tonight. All right, tonight we're going to take an in-depth look into the subtle art of world building. I'll be heading into space for reading time tonight with some serialized sci-fi action. And do you guys have a fear of dolls? Just asking. I have a low-key update to address for one of our ongoing hot topic threads, as well as other announcements to make. But before all of that, before I get into all of that, first things first, I like to take this time to slide right inside my first segment of the night, where I like to shine a spotlight on some books. That's right. That are currently available or coming soon to an online store near you. Yes, it's true. Let's see who we got up first tonight from the Twitter. We have Todd Dedman. He says, hey, a mysterious photo album, a book within a book, and questions on identity and being. Maps full of borders follows 15-year-old Molly as she questions everything around her in this refreshing take on the coming-of-age novel. All right. Let's jump right in here. What do we have? What is this? Do pray tell. Maps Full of Borders by Todd Dedman. Hello. How are you this evening? Are you ready to discover some books? Butterfly in the sky. Take a look in a book. Sir, are you off your meds? All right, there is the cover. Let's check out the blurb. Maps Full of Borders is a delicately and wryly written fresh take on the coming-of-age novel. Exploring questions of personal identity, gender, and whether we are a human being or a human doing. Well, I guess it depends who you ask. 15-year-old Molly doesn't understand the world around her and feels as though she doesn't belong. By chance, she comes across an old photo album that leads to an unlikely obsession with the boy in the images, a ghost child who allows Molly to express herself more freely than ever before. Is he friendly ghost? Is his name Casper? 199 pages of coming-of-age fiction. All right. A reading rainbow. Okay, next up. All right, next up we have the official Vos Draemar. It says, thanks, John. Attention, YA fantasy readers. The first in the Vos Draemar saga, the Sharpened Fangs of Lupine Spirit, is an involving story of conspiracy, legacy, and bloodshed in a world filled with animal people instead of usual races. Sink your fangs in for this furry adventure. Furry adventure. This is The Sharpened Fangs of Lupine Spirit, Vos Draemar, Book 1 by H.G. Sansostri. Kind of rolls off the tongue nicely. It's a pretty sick looking cover. I like that. Here's the blurb. In the snowy recesses of the clan of the great Lupine, buffeted by chilling winds and unrelenting snow, live Corsar and Ragnar Sedrid, skilled tournament fighters and sons of the prestigious Winter Baron. When war's thunderous howls sound in the east, the brothers are ripped away from their lives of warmth and peace and marched into the chaos of combat in the name of their people. The only comfort they carry is vested in each other and their steeds, the stoic Harengoth and loyal Quickpaw. But the bloodshed of warfare is the least harrowing trial facing the Sedrid brothers. Malevolence wreaks havoc out of sight. Figures speak of conspiracy in the shadows, and a single will, so determined to fulfill its duty, inflicts atrocity and malice of incomprehensible proportions. Vos Draemar hosts many more evils than the two wolves can ever begin to fathom, and their journey is just beginning. 408 pages of sword and sorcery, epic fantasy adventure fiction. Rock on. Bark at the moon. Okay. Next up tonight, we have a newbie here on, this is somebody new to the live stream. Well, so far everyone's been new, but I actually have quite a few entries lined up from this author. But starts off with, this is Emilio Iasiello. Iasiello. Anyways, complicated familial relationships. Understanding the past is the only way to set the future straight. And this is Smoke in the Afterlife by Emilio Iasiello. Iasiello. All right. Short one here. Smoke in the Afterlife is a collection of poems that narrates the hardships with the author's family while growing up. So a very personal one here. Whether it's bruises from a drunken fit or the affection from a loved one not often seen, they can shape and mold a person drastically. Containing 67 poems written in free verse, Smoke in the Afterlife details the author's childhood with his immediate family through specific traumatic events from his past. 110 pages of family poetry. Airing your dirty laundry. All right. Let's see what else we have here. The last book for tonight. Last but not least, we have from Edward Burghard. He writes, discovering your brand promise is the real key to your journey. You don't need to reinvent yourself. You need to be yourself. Your journey begins with an assumption that you bring something unique and wonderful to the party. Your personal brand promise. Oh, a little bit of nonfiction tonight. This could be useful. Let's check out Building Brands, Making It Personal. How to Create a Personal Brand by Ed Burghard. I chuckle because I'm always talking about not making things personal. But let's see. But I'm open. I like to think that I'm, I'm open-minded. I want to hear what Ed Burghard has to say. Let's check out the blurb, shall we? Perhaps he knows something that I don't. Boom. Okay, here we go. Creating an authentic personal brand can be challenging, but it can also change your life and help you reach your full potential. In this second book of his Building Brand series, Ed Burghard outlines a blueprint for how to, one, discover what makes you unique, and two, leverage your uniqueness for maximum success. Unlike other books on personal branding, the author rejects the advice that you need to reinvent yourself. Instead, Ed argues the key to success is to discover what makes you unique, and leverage that uniqueness to touch lives and improve life. In this book, you will learn what a personal brand really is, the key steps in a successful personal brand journey, how to discover what your unique strengths are, how to articulate your personal brand, how to create a document defining your core beliefs, aka a manifesto, how to create a personal development plan to leverage your strengths. If you are an elected official or aspiring to be one, this book also provides advice on how a personal brand can help you make a meaningful and positive impact on the political discourse in the United States. I actually would not advise getting into politics at this particular time in history, I should say. In the spirit of walking the walk, Ed shares his personal brand journey as a practical example to illustrate each step. A whopping 96 pages of advertising, business systems and planning in advertising. So thank you, Ed, for that one. Your contribution, sharing that. There's definitely always, room in business to get different people's perspectives on things. Hey-o! Hey, Rainer Chan. What's going on? How was your week? Did you rock and roll? Do you rock and roll, or are you into disco? You more of a disco man? Saying hi to Sam. Very good. I like when you guys, there's a little bit of back and forth in the chat. You guys, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to, reach out. Just get in touch with one another. Got a few people here. Grant V. I keep wanting to call you Gravy. I keep looking down at your name, and for whatever reason, I want to say Gravy at first. Perhaps it's the double V that's throwing me off. Just started the week. You choose random music. Just randomly. Those are the books for this week, ladies and gentlemen. Now, mind you, all these books that I covered here tonight, these are all books that are suggested to me directly by the publishers themselves. So whether they are self-pub author, it's from someone who manages an independent label, or directly from a small press company. Okay, the publisher of a small press company. So whoever it is, whether, because the author themselves could be self-published, so in that case, they are the publisher and the author, but it could come from the publisher. Like I say, it could be another author's work that a publisher from an independent label or small press company is suggesting to me. And so what you could do Now, each week I cover 4 books. All right. And then you can head over to my community tab in post-production. I put up a poll. You can cast your vote for which one out of those 4 books you thought had the most text appeal. Va va voom. That's right. In other words, which one out of those 4 books would you be most likely to pick up? Show it a good time, you know? Did you guys score any good books lately? Talking in the chat. You guys score any good books lately? Any book hauls, in other words? Or you read any good books lately? And if you guys would like to discover more from the independent market, another way you can do that is you can head on over to my shorts tab right now or my playlist tab and open up some mystery packs. That's right. Inside each mystery pack is a cover card that reveals a book that has been recognized by the LFLR network. And it also contains a link in the description to an editorial written on that book by yours truly. Looking fancy, huh? You are currently reading Herman P. Hunter's The Wizard's Stone. Awesome. Hey, I'll tell you what, you finish reading that book, you check back in with me and you let me know, drop me a comment and let me know what you thought of it. Or if you, I don't know if you have your own YouTube channel, Grant, if you do, do you do like do you do Booktube? Do you do like book review videos, or do you have a blog where you review indie books or anything like that? Because if you do, then you can definitely share a link with me, and I'll check out your video, or I will read your blog post. If you run a blog or something like that. Yeah. His most recent release. Yeah. I still have the Revenant and the Tomb on my TBR list. Hot topics. That's what we're going to get into next. We're going to get into some hot topics. I have a hot topic for that ass tonight. Best believe that. Yeah, that's right. Basically like a shorter novel or a longer novella is what I kind of gathered from it. But I got a sample of it, and I'm impressed with the writing. So I'm looking forward to it. More of a mood reader. I'm not one of these booktubers that reads like double-digit books every month. For a while there, I was trying to push myself to do that, and then it started to feel like work. And I'm trying to maintain a balance. I'm trying to maintain a balance of reading for enjoyment, but at the same time, I want to give these independent authors the time of day, a fair shake. I want to do their work justice, and really, like, I don't want to just consume, and just to say that I read it. You know what I mean? That's not the type of reader that I am. Like, I was trying to push myself to do as many books as I get through, as many books as I could in a month, which even then, when I was pushing myself, I was only doing on average about 4 to 5 with my schedule and everything. And it was starting to feel like work. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm taking a step back. So I do different things, I do different things. I try to occupy my, as a pastime, I try to occupy my time by giving attention to independent authors in different ways. So multiple different ways to bring attention to independent authors. So not just through, for instance, my blog and my editorials and reading their work. Yes, I do have a lot. Well, not an unmanageable amount. I'm not talking hundreds yet. I don't have hundreds of books on my TBR, but I do have quite a few, several dozen, I would say, to pick from. So when I add, because sometimes like I'll use this show as a way of discovering new work that I add to my TBR. So this is one source that I use when authors are getting in contact with me and suggesting their books or the publishers. That's a means of discovery for me. I have several other outlets as well that I use to discover independent works that I might be interested in. But whenever I add an author to my TBR, like a new author, it doesn't mean that they're going to the bottom of my list per se. So that's what I mean by like I'm a mood reader. In other words, it's like it's not necessarily when I'm in the mood to read, because I'll try to read something every month, or at least this year, I'm trying to read something every month. At least a couple books or something. But I go through a whole process when I read something. It's not just simply reading it. So like like I just showed with the mystery packs, like I got to sit down. It takes time. I got to first read the book. Then I got to sit down, reflect upon what it is that I read, think about it, review my notes. Then I'm going to write a report or editorial on that work. And give it the time, and then post a review, and it's a whole process. So it's not just simply reading the work and I'm done. Yeah, so there's that. Yeah, and that's just it. Like I want to enjoy it. I don't want to feel like, oh, I just got to pump these out. I got to pump these out, like, because I feel like if I did that, that wouldn't be fair to the authors themselves. If I was to just, read a book and then just go online and say, I liked it or I didn't like it, and then that be the end of it. You know what I mean? Like, and just like check a box and say, yep, done with that. I read that one, and not really say anything that is substantial as to whether or not that would indicate that I actually read the book. You know what I mean? Because say you're an author, because in the indie scene, it's not like mainstream. Like you may actually get the attention of the author in the indie scene. Like they made the author, in other words, the author might actually come across your review and they may want to hear what you have to say. It's not to say that they'll, that I think authors should be going into readers' spaces and wanting to argue with them. But that's neither here nor there. And that actually has to do with a hot topic that I covered before. But tonight we're going to be revisiting an old hot topic, not that one in particular. What do you say? Rainer chimes in. He says, yeah, I am super slow, and I am a mood reader as well. I plan on finishing Revenant and the Tomb soon. I had been just too busy writing. I did not get a chance to read for a while. And that's just it. I'm thinking about, I'm tossing around the idea of maybe coming up with a second stream of some sort, like doing a second stream during the week for you guys. But I don't want it to be perhaps as structured as this one is, maybe a little bit more loosey-goosey, and try to have it more focused on, whereas this stream is more focused on showcasing authors and writers and creators. Maybe this other stream that I do, this second live stream, would be more focused on connecting with people who are in Booktube, who who are involved in Booktube or book clubs and book groups. So connecting with readers in that way. So it's kind of like a nice little yin and a yang, if you will. So have one stream kind of dedicated, because readers are invited to be on here. I mean, readers are, like I've said before, readers can share your book clubs and stuff like that. And I'll make those announcements to say, oh, there's this book club you guys can get involved in, and this and that. And this is also a place where readers can come, like I've said before, to discover work that they can read, discover books. So this is, but in terms of the focus of the stream, I feel like over time it's kind of just leans more towards the creative aspect of the indie scene. So I would like to do a second stream during the week. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like yet, but I wanted to lean more towards the consumer or the audience portion of the indie scene, like how the audience or the consumer or the, you know, the people who can be involved in the indie scene, but you're not necessarily a creator. You're not on the creative side of it. In other words, like writing books, publishing books, but you can still be actively engaged and involved. You know what I'm saying? So like content creators, the booktubers, the readers who run book clubs and stuff like that. I want to do a stream kind of dedicated to that side of the indie scene where, I don't know, I'll come up with some ideas, but that's all I can really say about it right now. Grant saying, do any of you back off reading for a bit before writing to sort of let things coalesce and not be too inspired by what you've read recently? Yeah, I have in the past. There was a period of time where all I was doing was reading. I was reading before I was writing. That's for sure. That's for certain. I mean, and I'm not talking about, when I was a kid, no. I mean, like outside of school, like after being out of school and in my adult life. And I started picking up books again first before I started writing. I've kind of always written things here or there. But when I put down the writing, what I did into my adult life, I picked up books first and I was reading a lot, mostly the classics. I was reading nonfiction before I went into fiction. And then when I went into fiction, I was reading a lot of the classics. And then I put down books for a while. And then before I had started writing my own fiction. But definitely, you can tell that, you might be able to tell some of my inspiration from some of the short stories, the themes of some of my short stories in my writing. I mean, I think that that's just natural, things that resonate with you. But I feel like you don't have to be so worried. You don't have to be so worried about being unique. Because I feel like when things are unique, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be good. Just because it's unique doesn't mean that it's going to be good or interesting or compelling, which are all things that you want your fiction to be. So it's only natural that you may incorporate some typical tropes or some themes that are typical of a particular genre that you're writing in, which is kind of just par for the course. I mean, it's just natural. You want to write about things that kind of resonate with you as a human being, but at the same time might want to also use it to explore things and ideas and concepts that you feel are unique to you in that same way. Let's get into some hot topics, shall we? Yeah, let's get into some hot topic. I'm ready. I'm fired up. Yes, hot topic for content creators. This is where I pitch a hot topic to you, and then you turn around and create your own content on said topic. And if you tag me in your video, then I may feature your video during a future broadcast, or else you're always welcome to hear what I have to say and then drop your comments down below. Now, take your time, let these things kind of resonate within your mind, and think about what you want to say. You know, you can lay out a nice long comment, almost like a blog post, if you will. And then what I'll do is I will address your comments live on the air. And we'll go through your comment point by point by point as we kind of embroider the topic. All right. Embroider the topic. I call these, this isn't a series as much as these are ongoing conversations or threads, as I call them, because you don't have to watch these videos in order, as we can come at these topics from all different types of angles. Tonight, I'm revisiting a previously pitched topic. Is actually another one of the more popular threads on this in this segment, and that is traditional publishing obsolete? Now, I told you guys a while ago that I was going to cover this when more news came through, and this is in regard to the HarperCollins strike. I just recently came across an article posted last month, but I recently came across this article. It's coming from the NPR. It says HarperCollins and striking union reach tentative agreement. Okay, from our good friends over at the Associated Press. Yes, so this is a trusted source. All right. This is a very trusted source of news, you know, totally unbiased in every shape, fashion, and form. I see that, Crosby. All right. Let's get into this article and see what's going on with the strike. They reached a tentative agreement. So let's see what that means. Ooh. Hopefully it doesn't slow down too much. Oh yeah, tanking. Jesus. All right, we'll try to get through this article quick, fast, in a hurry. It's freaking tanking my broadband here. HarperCollins publishers and the union representing around 250 striking employees reached a tentative agreement providing increases to entry-level salaries. Okay. If union members ratify the contract, it will run through the end of 2025. All right, so it looks like we have ourselves a good 2-year contract here, and end a walkout that began nearly 3 months ago. HarperCollins and Local 2110 of the United Auto Workers released separate identical statements Thursday night announcing, quote, increases to minimum salaries across levels throughout the term of the agreement, as well as a one-time $1,500 lump sum bonus to be paid to bargaining unit employees following ratification. Hey, DA. I call you DA or James? No other details were immediately available. All right. So mid and entry level staffers in departments ranging from marketing to book design asked for a starting salary boost, okay, from $45,000 to $50,000. Not too shabby, I suppose, along with greater union protection and increased efforts to enhance diversity. Employees have worked without a contract since last spring and went on strike November 10th. The industry and others closely followed the walkout, which drew attention to growing unhappiness over wages that have traditionally been low in book publishing and have made it hard for younger staffers without outside help to afford living in New York City, the nation's publishing hub. Earlier this week, Macmillan announced it was raising starting salaries from $42,000 to $47,000. The other three major New York publishing houses, Penguin Random House, Hachette Book Group USA, and Simon & Schuster, offer starting salaries between $45,000 and $50,000. A months-long impasse without negotiations led to criticism of HarperCollins by agents, authors, and others in the book community who alleged the publisher was not trying to reach a deal. HarperCollins, part of Rupert Murdoch's News Corp, agreed on January 26 to talks with a federal mediator. Soon after, HarperCollins announced plans to lay off 5% of North American employees, citing declining revenues and growing costs. Uh-oh. Sounds like there's trouble in paradise. That's what that sounds like to me. What do you guys think? I'd be happy to hear what you guys have to say on this one. You can come at this from all different types of angles, but this is an article that I wanted to read and kind of just give you guys an update so I didn't leave you hanging as far as the whole strike goes. So it sounds like they have come to an agreement, but with a caveat, if you will, with that little tidbit at the end there. So you guys take that for what it's worth. Take it with a grain of salt, what have you, as far as how it pertains to our ongoing hot topic discussion. How you doing, DA? Been working on that. You've been working on that Substack. I made a Substack. I finally set up a Substack. Well, I didn't really set it up yet. All I did was kind of just reserve my site, if you will, reserve my name on the website. I do that. I have that with quite a few different platforms. Like I'm even on Wattpad, but I don't really do anything with it. I just kind of sometimes I'll just sign up for all these different types of platforms just to kind of like reserve my name on that platform, but doesn't necessarily mean that I always end up doing anything with it. So as of right now, the big three right now that I have set up or have reserved, but I haven't started doing anything with yet is my Patreon, my Substack, and the Subscribestar. Now, I'm contemplating, tonight we have some serialized fiction, and there's a website that it's hosted on that I think is interesting, and I'm kind of keeping an eye on. But I'm thinking about getting into serialized fiction, right? And I want to find a platform and I'm going to monetize it. It's not going to be free to read serialized fiction. And I don't like Kindle Vella. I actually don't want to put all my eggs in one basket as far as that goes with my publishing. So, I have my KDP account, but I don't want to put all my work on Amazon. In other words, like with the serialized project, I'd like to host that on a different platform, but it has to be a platform that I can monetize as well. So it's not going to be free to read. It's going to be premium work. But that's why I've been thinking about all these different types of platforms that I could put a serialized project on. And I'm kind of trying to come up with a creative way of doing it too. Instead of just doing just the text, I might incorporate some audio in there. I might incorporate some video, even incorporate some video in there. I don't know yet. Or maybe some visuals like images or whatever. Find out more when I get there. Kindle Vella. Yeah, that's why I'm not even messing with it. I'm not even going to mess with it. I'm not impressed. Well, it's not bad. I'm not going to say the platform. The platform isn't bad. It's just that it's just not developed yet. It's not that well developed yet. It's like and it's just and most of the audience on there is like it's just it's romance, that does the best on there. But all that aside, I don't really care. It's not necessarily that like that's a big deal. If it was the audience on there, that's not a big deal to me. I do want, it would be nice if I'm choosing a platform that already has a built-in reader base, that could discover my work organically. But at this rate, I'm pretty much banking on the idea that I'm probably just going to have to do direct marketing myself for my work, no matter what platform I put it on. So the whole audience thing isn't a huge factor for me, because in terms of discoverability, if there is a reader base that could possibly discover my work organically, great, that's awesome. But really what I'm looking at is there a viable amount of users that have already been on the platform for a while? In other words, has the platform kind of stood the test of time, or would I be uploading all my work in vain for a platform that's basically just going to be null and void in less than 5 years from now? Because I want the longevity. In other words, I don't want to have to go through the whole freaking process all over again because the platform shit the bucket. You know what I mean? It becomes irrelevant. It's an irrelevant platform within the next, 5 years. I want to be able to just put it on there, build it up, and just let that kind of grow into a stream of income, and a way for people to discover my work, in another way. So in other words, on the business side, I'm not putting all my eggs in the basket. And then on the artistry side, it's a separate platform to kind of like host my work that is reliable. So in other words, if for whatever reason, God forbid, I lose my KDP account, that's not all my work down the crapper. You know what I mean? Whether I'm looking at it from the business standpoint or from the artistry standpoint. What is that one? D.A. Bell Wright says, I found Moon Quill and other places. Moonquill. That's a new one for me. All right. I'm going to get the next segment set up here. I don't know. You guys let me know. You guys working on anything new or what? I'm going to be getting into some announcements here in just a moment. Yeah, anytime you guys, if you guys read anything, like I said before, if you've ever read anything from this that was featured on this during the show or anything like that, you can let me know. You know, share your thoughts, things like that. You still blogging, DA? Remember you were telling me you were gonna post something. It was a while back. Have you given up on that? Or have you just kind of taken a break? All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into some announcements. Ring ding dong, ring a ding 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 dong. First up, I'm going to talk about, let's talk about publishing. Since I was just speaking about publishing, I have a little announcement to make. That's right. And this has to do with the Storytellers Society. So the Storytellers Society is a project that I launched early in 2022. This is an ongoing project that is open to the public. So I'm accepting, in other words, open submissions. Okay, open submissions. This is a non-exclusive agreement. What you do is you are just accepting the terms of service. So this could be, we're looking for flash fiction, okay? Specifically flash fiction. So for this particular project, this is flash fiction that is between 500 to 2,000 words, all right? It can be any genre that you'd like. I actually updated the submission form. So there's a little drop-down menu so you can kind of like let me know how you would categorize your piece of work that you are submitting to the project. Now, this can be a piece of work that you have published somewhere else. So whether you have it published on your own blog or it's been published in an anthology project way back or before, whatever, so long as you own the copyright to the work and you have permission, you are allowed to grant me permission to republish the work, okay? And just because you submit a piece of work doesn't automatically mean that it's going to be approved. But if it is approved, then you will effectively book yourself a room. Yes, at the Hotel del SS, as I have dubbed it, where all the members of the Storytellers Society stay. And that will be a place where readers, as they come and go in my website, what have you, can discover your work for themselves. So it was another means of discovery, if you will, and also an opportunity to kind of expand your creative portfolio as you kind of build a peer-to-peer, business-to-business relationship with yours truly and the Live Free, Live Rich brand. And this is something, once you submit, your job is done after that. And this is something that I am going to continue to market indefinitely, into the future. And this is kind of like just the first phase of this project. I will, once I kind of generated enough buzz, or I feel like I've gotten enough people involved in this project, I might come revisit this project and kind of take it to the next step, where I kind of want to kind of go through like a metamorphosis, if you will, and kind of turn it into something a little bit bigger. I've made mention of the idea of possible web series that comes from this, that may come into development, or maybe getting into the idea of short film, where possibly some of the entries are kind of adapted for that, or something like that. I don't know. Or developing a spin-off magazine of some sort. We'll see. But before I start getting into other type of bigger projects, I kind of want to just test the waters. I feel like this is kind of a stepping stone, a way of me being able to reach out to my peers and say, hey guys, this is an opportunity to collaborate. If you're interested, you're interested. This is effectively from one artist to another. That's what this is about. From one artist to another, people who are just passionate about the craft, period. Just coming together and working together on a project. That's all this is. What's going on in the chat? You guys, if you're stopping by and you're stopping by just now, just tuning in, go ahead. Feel free. Go ahead, say hi. No need to be shy. I just like to know who took the time to stop by. Let's see what's going on with the mystery packs. That's right, mystery pack 40 reveals The Doll. The Doll by Laura Dalio. So this is my most recent read from the independent market. The Doll by Laura Dalio. This is a sci-fi novel. Sci-fi novel about a guy, and he gets himself a little, buys himself an android girlfriend. He's done with real women. It's like, screw you guys. I'm taking my balls and I'm going home. And I'm going to buy myself an android broad. So I was thinking to myself, wow, that sounds like an interesting story. I want to know what makes this guy tick. Where's his headspace at? And you can find that one on the website, or you could head over to the shorts tab and you check that out and go ahead and read my breakdown on that one. And speaking of dolls, this is a little bit serendipitous, I have to say, but I played a role in the most recent episode of Doorway to Nightmare. The Doorway to Nightmare is an audio drama series produced by Winslow Swan and Crimson Mackenzie. It is a mystery thriller genre with the occasional horror and kind of dark comedy kind of tossed in there. And in this episode, there is a malicious doll. It's killer doll, malicious doll. Is it Is it real? Is it fake? Who knows? You know, I commented that I think maybe you guys head over there, you check it out, you let me know, but don't come back here and talk about it. Go ahead, leave a comment over on their channel. I already left a comment on this video with my suggestion of what the characters should have done in this situation. And I think that that's a really good way with these types of like audio dramas, the type of comments that, you know, perhaps Winslow and Crimson would appreciate is, you know, maybe just chime in and kind of get engaged and just say, hey, you know, what do you think the characters, or if you were one of the characters in that situation, like what would you have done? You know, would you have punted the doll across the room? I said, hey, look, this thing's acting fucking weird. You know, maybe try taking out the batteries first and foremost, you know, because if it has no juice, you know, it has no energy, it's not going to be able to put in the kind of nefarious effort that it did throughout this program. It's fun. It's fun stuff, I have to say. Sometimes it makes me chuckle too, because it's audio drama, right? So it's like it's not meant to come across as being realistic or anything. You know, they're half-hour episodes of kind of like heightened, you know, emotion and stuff like that, and it's fun. And new episodes premiere on Fridays. Or in season 6 now. And I'm actually going back and I'm watching all their previous episodes. They have playlists where you can just go through each season, and I'm going back and I'm kind of watching, kind of getting caught up and like seeing where they started to where they are now. So it's kind of interesting to see how they've developed their show. They're very passionate about that project. All the actors, the voice actors, are human beings, by the way. What is Cherry 2000? Now inquiring minds want to know. Don't make me whip out Google. I'm whipping out the Google right now. I'm going to whip out the Google. Cherry 2000 is a 1987 film. Is that what you're referring to? Is that what you're referring to? Are you referring to this right here? Cherry 2000, the blockbuster hit of the summer. Check out that rack. Redhead, rack, Cherry 2000. Bazooka. Now that's what I call bazooka. Sir, can you please? All right. We'll reel it in. Spurgin on the live. We have some more announcements to get to here. Let's keep it professional, shall we, folks? Come on. Give me a break. Is it that's what this one's about? The guy needs, so Cherry 2000, guy needs a spare part for his android wife. Uh-oh. I wonder what's broken. But it's been discontinued. So he hires Melanie Griffith to escort him to an abandoned factory. I'm assuming from the cover, kind of has a Mad Max feel to it, that it is a post-apocalyptic or a dystopian type of story. I actually watched this past week. I actually watched the original Mad Max, and now I understand. Now, believe it or not, that was my first time watching the movie from beginning to end. I've seen bits and pieces, but never actually sat down and watched the movie from beginning to end. And I will say that I understand where people are coming from when they say that the first Mad Max movie isn't really that great. It's not really, I wouldn't really classify it as dystopian. It's almost like the first Mad Max movie is almost like more of a prequel than like a starter, like a first movie in a series. It's more of like, it definitely feels like more of a prequel than it does like, an introduction to a series. I'll have to rewatch the second one. Let's see what we got here. Let's get through the rest of these announcements. And this comes from author David Wolf. He says, all my books are featured on my website. Just simply shares a link to that website. Let's check it out. I have a new thing here where if an author goes ahead and shares their author website with me, just shares a link to the website, what I'll do is I'll just treat it as like an announcement, and I will visit that website and just kind of check out the about section, just kind of get a general feel for the layout of the website, the design, if you will. And then we'll see if they have an author about section, and we'll check that out. And then you guys, of course, there'll be a link, and you guys can check out the website further, maybe discover their work for yourself, so on and so forth. So here it is. So author David T. Wolf, and this is him in his library. Quite an impressive home library, I have to say. Crime novels, big and bold, in your face, right out the gates. Crime novels. Dave Wolf has written a small but tasty collection of crime novels, all of which have garnered high praise from perhaps the toughest reading crowd of all, other writers. As in most of his books, he lightens the dire situations his characters get into with wry humor. And just a few of his books here. He's got science fiction as well. David Wolf specializes in near future science fiction, exploring with his usual wry wit the effects and consequences of possible technological changes that are right around the corner. And that's the kind of science fiction that I like. I don't get too much into the spacey, the space cadet kind of stuff, sci-fi, the alien sci-fi, that type of stuff. But I do like the more like contemporary type of sci-fi approach, like the type of stuff that it's like, okay, what is it? In other words, the things that I may be likely to experience within my lifetime type of sci-fi, or that, the next generation or two may experience. The novel Mind Clone looks at what happens when you upload your mind to a computer and meet your digital twin. The short story Do-Over takes a 30-ish man back to his preteen years, but with all his adult memories intact, giving him a chance to make a few adjustments to his own life and to events in the wider world. This 5-star novel is becoming a cult classic. Yeah, for good reason. I could see how that could resonate with a lot of different readers, a huge demographic of readers, I should say. And in the short story, a disturbance in the church. When an android seeks to confess his sins, an android. There's some assumptions that need to be made there in order for the android to believe that an android would want to confess its sins. But that's neither here nor there. And receive communion, the Catholic hierarchy must deal with the question, can an intelligent, autonomous individual be said to have a soul? Yes. Addressing the elephant in the room. And then he's got some trailers here. I won't play the trailers here right now, but he's got some stuff for some younger readers in here. And a little bit about the author. He says, I've been a storyteller all my life. I told stories to my parents when I was a kid. In high school, I edited an award-winning literary magazine. I aced my college creative writing courses. As an advertising copywriter, my lies, my TV, radio, and print ads helped sell billions of dollars worth of goods and services, winning numerous awards along the way. When I'm not writing, I'm reading, listening to classical music, walking my dog, reading, running around with friends, reading, taking in concerts, plays, and musicals, and, oh yes, reading. That is author David Wolfe. Not bad. And also, I have to say, I do appreciate simple web design. People, I really do appreciate simple web design. I am a firm believer of the KISS method. Keep it simple, sugar, you know. Especially if you're going to create an author website, I would say don't like plaster your website with AdSense, because for one, you're not on your own individual website unless you're getting like millions of regular viewers on a monthly basis to your website. Is for one, it's not going to be worth it, and for two, it slows down everything, and it just becomes a pain in the ass. And all it's going to do is boost your bump rate or whatever that is. You know, the rate where it's like people just leave your website before your pages are even finished loading. So speaking of links, if you can share your websites, one place where you can do that, and the easiest way to get your work featured on a future broadcast is just go ahead, join one of our group servers, or you can join them both if you'd like. I recently created the Gilded, and the Discord has been around for a little while now. It's slow coming in terms of traffic, but it's not really meant to be a place for advertising. Think of it more of a place, think of it more of a resource, okay? That's what I want you to think of these servers as, these group servers. They're more of a resource in the sense that they act as kind of like a direct link between you and I. People are busy. People don't always have the time to keep tabs on social media. Some people don't even fucking like social media. You don't have a Twitter, you don't have Facebook, what have you. You can join one of these. And I have all these different channels. It's pretty cool because I have all these different channels set up in these group servers, so you guys can just share the appropriate links in the created channels, the channels designed for those links. So whether it be you're sharing your book links with me, video links with me, links from your writing, like from your blog or your website with me, book clubs, reading events, stuff like that. All those types of things. You share the links with me, and that's all you have to do. You don't have to do anything else. You don't have to engage. You don't have to check in daily. You don't have to engage in small talk or do anything like that. You can if you want to. And bear in mind that the more people that join these groups, it can kind of dovetail as a networking portal. I want you guys to network with one another. I want you guys to talk with one another. I want you guys to, get to know one another. We're all adults here. Okay. I'm not there to police people. I'm not going to be policing your speech. I'm not going to be policing, anything like that. I just assume we're all adults here. You guys can network with each other, get to know, make connections. I encourage that because it's hard enough as it is out there for independents, to turn around. And then, I've tried joining multiple other Discord groups and stuff like that. And it's like these people, they shoot themselves in the foot, and they make things difficult on themselves for no good fucking reason. Like I've seen it like, you got to be a level 5 before you can interact with any of the channels. It's like, why? Why would the pitter patter and the quacking and like just the the small talk and stuff? Like, I got shit to do, man. You know what I mean? Like, where can I go? Give me a place where I can go as an independent artist and just show people my work. Say, hey, this is what I'm working on. And that's what this is. I saw a need that wasn't being fulfilled for me. And I said, hey, sometimes if you want to do things right, you got to do it yourself. You know what I mean? And that's the type of attitude that I have as far as that goes. But please, if you have your own Discord server, you have your own Gilded server, and you want to share that with other people who are in these groups, more power to you. You can post those right in there. I'm not opposed to that at all. As I said before, I don't see people as like competition in the indie scene, because that's not what the indie scene is about. For me, the indie scene is very much a community-based activity. So in other words, it's not about idolatry. It's not about Hollywood mainstream and celebrity worship and this and that. It's just artists coming together. It's like I just see people as either my peers or people who appreciate indie works. Both are appreciated in kind of on equal footing, if you will. Yeah, so there's that. Those links are always in the description down below, or in the show notes, I should say. And last piece of announcements here is the LFLR Weekly. You have no interest in social media. You have no interest in joining groups. Well, then this one might pique your interest. If you like periodicals and you want to keep tabs with what's going on with the Live Free Live Rich brand in general, whether it be the Live Free Live Rich Network, Live Free Live Rich Entertainment, or Live Free Live Rich Entrepreneurs, you can just sign up right on the homepage, livefreeliverich.com. And you will receive an email, a good old-fashioned email with all the bullet points, the headlines, if you will, of the week-to-week activities surrounding myself and the brand. And there's also some links in there where you can actually get involved in some other things pertaining to the brand as well, whether you are an artist or someone who wants to appreciate the independent arts or the independent scene, get involved in the independent scene. Now, I'm also thinking about doing, like, even if you're on social media, I'm thinking about doing something exclusive with this. So for those of you who have signed up for the newsletter, stay tuned, because I might be doing something special for you guys exclusively who have, signed up for the newsletter, something exclusive for you guys. So just head on over to the main page and, just sign up. It's just a name and an email. That's all I need. All right. Moving right along. We're going to get into one of our final 2 segments for tonight. Let me set this up. You guys hanging in there? Who's checking in? Who's in the chat? Anyone? Give me a shout out. Toss up the horns. Something. Let me know you are alive, baby. Are you alive? Is there a pulse? What is going on tonight? Is there another stream going on? Who's streaming? Who are you watching? You double dipping? Are you double dipping? Who's double dipping? Let me know. Who you watching? You can let me know. Look, I'm not going to shame you for it. Maybe I might want to know. Maybe I might want to know who else you're watching. You know, I'm always on the lookout for other creators. All right, we're going to get into some reading time now. We're going to get into some reading time. Coming in hot from the Twitters. This is from Jeremy Zentner. And Jeremy writes, as aliens lay a siege against Triton Starbase, old weapons are used to a horrifying degree. Check out the latest episode of Machete Clan. Is it machete or machete? Or is it tomato? Either way, we got some serialized sci-fi, action sci-fi, maybe a little bit of horror in there for you guys tonight. With Machete Clan by Jeremy Zentner via mithralfiction.com. Now, this is the serialized website that I was telling you guys about. I want to show you. We'll get a little sneak peek into what's going on with this website, kind of the formatting and all that. So far, from what I could see, so let's check. Let me show you this. All right, so there's the page. There's Jeremy's page. That's what it looks like. But apparently this is they're trying to focus with this platform, for what I can see, they're trying to tap into the mobile market. So what we have here is so they're advertising to mobile. Let's see. We got this banner here, and then we have the blurb. Let me get the full picture here. There we go. That looks better. All right, so let's look at this blurb real quick. Sonia is a teenage ex-con who wants to make a fresh start. She lives in a starfaring civilization and signed up to help settle a new planet with her parents. The frontier planet is known as Varuna, and it takes 10 years to reach, keeping the colony very isolated from the rest of humanity. When Sonia and her parents arrive in orbit, they are attacked by a hideous, marauding alien species known as the Gakruks, or the Gakru. Militia troops from Varuna come to their aid as the frontier's guardian defenders. They are the Machete Clan. All right. All right. Machetes intensify with Machete Clan. Let's check this out. Episode 1. She's up. Look. My eyes focused on the short stature of my mother beaming over with some sort of thankful relief. Mom, I said. Yes, sweetie, she said. You're up. We weren't sure if you were going to... What? The doctor was a bit worried about you, boomed another gleeful individual. A deeper voice. Said you slipped into a coma when they took you out of stasis. It was Dad. They were both at my side, just like they said they would be 10 years ago. 10 years before entering stasis aboard this colonial starship. Did we make it? I asked. Did we reach Varuna? Yes, dear. Yes, we made it, Mother said. Blokes are even playing one of the old promotionals, Dad said, gesturing at the wall hollow. I looked to see a world full of greens and yellows against the backdrop of blue oceans dominating the planet's surface. A ring of gold dust circled the azure orb like an angelic halo. A planet unlike the one I grew up on for most of my life. The promotional narrated the planet's key importance in the star sector. Discovered by star explorer Penelope Moreno, Varuna was in high demand as a colony world for food and medicinal production to key mining facilities throughout the sector. Prior to its discovery, most miners were at the mercy of the long 10-year journey, often delayed with massive logistical issues. So, they didn't think I would wake? I asked. Well, unfortunately, interstellar travel can still be dangerous. You were stuck in a coma for a bit there. We'll need to have the nurse unit look you over to be sure everything's fine, Dad said. A nurse unit? Not a doctor? My attention was taken by opening doors and a whirring sound that approached. The doctor is currently with a few more serious individuals at the moment. There's nearly 10,000 people he must monitor, you understand, rang a high volume, albeit monotone voice. Entering my room was a floating bot that possessed a collection of extended appendage tools that dangled from its forward profile like a metallic beard. At the bot's center was a large ocular cam, orbited by 3 other ocular sensors. If you would like, I can schedule a consultation after my examination, but the wait time is approximately 4 days. No, I said, it's fine. The bot floated to me and held up a thermoscan. May I take your temperature? I nodded, and the nurse unit placed the thermoscan over my head. I'm afraid you have COVID. No, that's not in the story. I just ad-libbed that. You must die. Exterminate, exterminate. Seems a bit warm. Do you feel ill? Seems a bit warm. Do you feel ill? Just what I think are my cramps coming on, I mumbled. It could be a sign. Is that still the bot? It could be a sign of something more serious. Standard procedures requires I sample your blood. I groaned. Ugh. Isn't there some other way you can check? My head is pounding. Of course, the bot stated. Suddenly, the hollow feed on the wall mutated into a reel of coding and data scrolls orbiting a massive whirlwind of hypnotic hues that reached out in three-dimensional coils. My attention was bewildered by the display of photonic coloration before feeling a rapid and sharp prick. Hey! I turned to see the bot pulling a needle from my arm. What the hell? Apologies, mistress. Mistress? Apologies, mistress, the bot said. I needed a sample to complete the diagnosis. You said you would find another way. You lied. Apologies, but there are no other procedures to sample for the full range of concerns. What do you call it? A white lie. A white lie. The robot is quippy, I see. That's a violation of medical rights, I said. I know. They told me so in juvie. You're not in juvie. You're aboard a starship, and aboard a starship, the captain reigns supreme. The bot swiveled around and departed the chamber. Come back. I was having fun as the bot. I turned back to my parents. Both had amused looks about them. The pricks. You two think this is funny? Don't mind the bot, Father said. It's a bit smug for a bucket of circuits, but it grows on you. Has the doctor ever showed his face? Mother snorted. Only on the hollow. He was kind enough, but he said some of his colleagues didn't stay. He's been swamped in duties, I guess. Not stay? What happened? Mother and father hesitated, looking at each other, same as they appeared when I asked to go to the Kai Sun Resort for spring break. Mother looked at me and said, they left the ship. Left the ship? Why? I don't know, Father said. A shudder erupted. The emergency alarms blared, and my body gyrated in sudden shock. Amber lights winked in and out from every crevice of the chamber. The nursing bot word in. Moi, Lorenzo family, please accompany me to security chamber. Security chamber? What's going on? Father demanded. There has been a forceful rupture in the crawl space of the exterior hull. We are apparently being boarded. Boarded by who? I asked. Unknown, but sensors have picked up an alien craft several days ago. Profile suggests an alien on the interstellar piracy list. Aliens? I asked. The Gaku. The Gakru. Speaking of Gakru, let's move right on into episode 2. I am intrigued by what's going on here. Plus, I'm having fun reading the bot. What do you guys think? This is heavy on the dialogue, I will say. This is so far I would say that this story is very, very heavy on dialogue, almost as if I'm reading a more of a screenplay than just simple prose. My eyes dilated. Let's get the hell out of here, Father said. I slipped on some pants over the medical gown and then a tank top while my parents collected our belongings. Dad threw on one of his old mill jackets and zipped up like he was going to war. The attire was bullet resistant and had a number of sensor disruptors. My mother glanced at the thing and said, "That weight's just going to slow you down." Me? He asked. No way. I used to march 50 kilometers in this thing. I can't believe you took it with us. It's a classic. Any marauders will think twice before confronting us. Who is that? You know, Sergeant Gabriel would have skinned you alive for misappropriation of squad inventory if she knew you stole that thing. Stole? They don't even use the design anymore. Forgive me. Forgive me, the nursing bot interjected. It's quite a journey to the habitation deck and then to the security chamber. We'll need to move with a bit more haste. The family and I fell in line and followed the bot through the corridor. Amber and red lights continued to flicker as the alarms reverberated against the bulwarks. The decking curved ever so slightly upward against what was the ship's rotating hull. I started to realize that we were the only ones around. Where's all the people? I asked. Most of the other patients were discharged to the habitation decks where they wait for our final approach to Varuna. We passed medical room after medical room. My legs were ragged with that elastic feeling, a wretched side effect after years of stasis. I could feel the weakness stumbling onto my knees and then completely to the decking like a toddler that just took its first steps. My parents glimpsed back, my father giving Mom the bag and then lifting me over his shoulder. Well, I huffed. This is embarrassing. Never mind it, love, he said. There's no room for pride out here. Pride? I said. I spent 6 months showering with 30 girls when you were on deployment. Honey, could we not with the guilt trip right now? Mother said, I rolled my eyes. We continued down the stairwell that merged into the lower level of the ship. This way, the bot said. We turned to another stairwell and descended to the next level, which was taller and brighter than the previous, full of warm lighting and an umber paneling that gave the corridors a more amiable, albeit a little antiquated appearance. Other passengers trotted down the vinyl decking, babbling with anxiety and confusion as the alarms blared. More nursing and service bots were floating about, ushering people into corridors and out of living chambers. Screams began to echo in the distant corridors while the evacuation raged on like a frenzied riot. My ribs were tender against the pressure of my father's shoulder, my heart fluttering like a hummingbird on steroids. Dad caught us up to the other dazed refugees who were trying to figure out what was going on. Most of my eye line was limited to a frontal angle over Mother's head, who trailed behind. We lugged through the herd of panic, screaming people, and I saw a flash of blinding light emanate from the deck we ran over. I flinched, and Dad jerked suddenly, nearly dropping me before readjusting his grip with his other arm. I saw sparks and flames arcing from the decking we just passed. Dad twisted to look, mirroring other passengers' naive interest and suspending the retreat to take notice like moths to a flame. More screams echoed when I said, "Maybe we keep going?" The sparks came to a halt, leaving a perimeter of scorched vinyl and glowing yellow alloy melt. Mother tugged at us, wordlessly begging Dad to keep moving. The ring of torched decks sucked downward faster than decompression. We double-timed on our exodus, darting towards the medical bots as it whirred into a thinner corridor. A rapid rumbling noise exploded from the recently burned tunnel, and my dad somehow found more speed to sprint with. Along the way, I could hear sharp sparks and metal-on-metal scrapes booming in our wake. The rapid strikes against the vessel's partitions began to increase in mass, with the flood of screams that were less an echo now and more of an all-encompassing environmental commotion of dread and terror. "What the hell is that?" I screamed. The bot was right, Mother said. It's Gakru. What the hell are Gakru? Alien bandits, Dad said. Nomadic raiders of the darker Vac. What? When we were on deployment, Mother began. You mean when you left me at the boarding school? Yes, Mother said, rather crossly. She shrugged off my snark. Well, patrolling for Gakru is what we did. I thought you patrolled for pirates. They are pirates, Father said. Being human isn't a prerequisite for thieving, and they like to steal people for enslavement, too. I couldn't tell if he was invoking a morbid sense of humor or being dead serious. I decided to clamp down on my woe is me attitude. As we approached another crossroad, a dozen passengers rushed past, all of them quickly tailed by monstrous beings, treading on four legs like a centaur of myth. Their front legs were larger, more muscular than their rear. Attached to their bodies were gold-orange castings of armor that shimmered as though a field surrounded them like a protective specter. The creatures wielded what looked like javelins, sparking with bouts of plasma and stimulated radiation as they chased down passengers, gutting those that fell to the wayside. Oh, bloody hell, I belched. The bot turned us around and led us around an emergency hatch where we heard an unexpected crunch. I looked up to see the bot fall to the deck like a pile of bolts. We looked up to see a Gakru on its hind legs like a steed from hell. In its hand, it lifted a spear of flaming white fire, ready to strike. I screamed. Well, apparently you're going to have to scan to read more. So this is a mobile-based serialized fiction platform that apparently incorporates some sort of scan model here. Available on Google Play and the Apple App Store. Pretty fun. That was pretty fun, I have to say. I enjoyed that. Thank you for sharing that, Jeremy. All right, let me slide right into my final segment for tonight. And for you writers out there, this might be for some interest. This is going to be a video essay, okay? It was interesting. Interesting. Do you say that in your Spock voice? It was interesting. All right. Let's get into some featured media. This comes to me from Wrestling with Words. The name on the Cameron, which is AKA Cameron Thompson. Cameron writes, I recently published a video on the world building and The Last of Us. Appreciate everyone who has watched. The Last of Us and the subtle art. This is coming from, so this is his YouTube channel, and this is coming courtesy of his YouTube channel. And this is The Last of Us and the Subtle Art of World Building. And this is an analysis of The Last of Us and its setting. Okay, so this is his YouTube channel, Wrestling with Words. And I guess I kind of took a little sneak peek. It's basically, this is going to be like a video essay, if you will, which I actually am a fan of video essays. I do enjoy watching video essays from time to time. And in this case, very appropriate for the Monday night live stream because this is a video essay that has to do with writing craft, world building more specifically. That would be fascinating. Yes, it was interesting. All right. Who's tuning in? Who wants to increase their skills tonight? Learn a thing or two about world building. Now, let me just preface this segment by saying that, for one, I have never played the Last of Us video game. I'm aware that it's a video game. I'm not very knowledgeable on the lore, the storyline, anything about it. So I'm just viewing this as like a casual viewer with very little knowledge as far as the source material goes. Okay. Secondly, what was the second part here? Oh yeah, I haven't watched this video, so I'm just kind of looking at this through the lens of a writer who understands story structure and understands a little bit about world building, and I kind of just want to see what get this guy's take on this, and let's just get into it.
I remember being in high school, choosing to do an extra credit report for environmental science class on The Hot Zone by Richard Preston. The Hot Zone is a nonfiction thriller following the origins and incidences involving viral hemorrhagic fevers and a series of viruses with biosafety level 4. This is the most dangerous category of viruses and diseases, ones that pose life-threatening conditions for which there's no vaccine or therapy available. More specifically, the book followed the origins and several outbreaks of the Ebola virus and Marburg viruses. It's a terrifying book. I can't remember a time or another story that made me want to crawl out of my own skin more, becoming more frightened by a thing unseeable to the naked eye. It was a life-changing experience, one that I later found an appreciation for, finding my worldview and interests shift. A few years later, I'm in college studying environmental science, and I was in a biology lecture where we were learning about the fungal world. We were watching a clip from the BBC documentary about a strange fungus that took control of various ants and insects. It was hypnotizing. Watching the clip of a strange mushroom and its fruiting bodies protrude from the heads and thoraxes of dead insects. Seeing something that was stranger and more frightening than fiction playing out in our natural world. I remember a feeling of anxiety and fragility, feeling so small compared to a spore or a virus. how little and insignificant human life is in the savage ecosystem of the natural world.
Mother Nature is terrifying.
I remember watching and listening to our professor talk about how this fungus decimated ant colonies and ripped through overpopulated insect groups, balancing out the biodiversity of each ecosystem. Cordyceps. I remember being horrified and absolutely fascinated with how such a thing existed. A similar feeling when I first read about the Ebola virus a few years ago. In both instances, I thought, how could such a thing exist? This must be fiction. But it wasn't. That evening, after the lecture, I went back to my dorm and searched online for more about the strange fungi. But
I'll tell you this much right now, before you go on. This is within the theme of work, or has to do with like world building and stuff. But I would never, ever, you'll never catch my ass walking around all willy nilly in damn Amazonian jungles or some other type of rainforest. Screw that. That anything that's gonna, that I would admit scares the hell out of me would be that being trapped. It almost the same as being, deep sea ocean. Deep in the ocean, but at least in the ocean, like you're not going to survive deep in the ocean for very long, not without, an oxygen tank or something like that. So without some sort of apparatus to keep you breathing and keep you safe, you're not surviving in the ocean. In other words, you're probably going to die pretty quick. But the rainforest, I mean, you could suffer for days in the rainforest. Just like I'll just say there's enough nightmare fuel, like, especially like not even just during the daytime, but there's enough nightmare fuel during the daytime. But then you imagine the rainforest at nightfall, during nightfall, the whole freaking ground beneath your feet comes alive at nighttime. Not to mention all the things that go bump in the night.
Instead, found something different. I stumbled upon an upcoming game that had recently been announced and was being promoted for the PlayStation consoles. A new story-driven game that looked incredible and seemed to have been inspired from the very thing I just learned about in class that day. The Last of Us, a story whose post-apocalyptic setting hinges on a fungus that is observable in our natural world.
That's cool. I didn't know that. I thought The Last of Us, the little bit that I knew about it, I thought that it was just a story, like a post-apocalyptic story, just in general about survival. I didn't know that it had I didn't know that there was like a creature feature element to it up until this point.
What I want to talk about today isn't the amazing characters, engaging plot, or strong themes featured in the game and TV show, The Last of Us. Instead, I want to look at the setting. I want to look at how we can learn to make better worlds, finding inspiration and ideas from reality, similar to that of The Last of Us. But first, a bit of background. The Last of Us, Part 1 and Part 2, is a video game developed by Naughty Dog and later developed into a TV series by HBO. The adaptation thus far has been praised as the greatest video game to TV adaptation ever, pleasing both new fans and existing ones. The biggest criticism as of writing this script and shooting this video is that the show is too faithful to the game and doesn't deviate enough, if that is even a possible criticism. I've been familiar with the games and played them, so I was excited when I heard about the announcement by HBO. For those unfamiliar with the games and haven't yet seen the TV show, I'll give the briefest of overviews, avoiding any spoilers. The main plot takes place in a post-apocalyptic America, where the world has collapsed due to an infectious fungus that transforms its human hosts into aggressive creatures, closely resembling zombies. The series and the virus draws heavy inspiration from the cordyceps virus. The main plot follows the survivors picking up 20 years after the outbreak. Does this sound like an original idea? Or do you feel these post-apocalyptic story elements, set in a zombie-infested world, with rugged anti-heroes and broken-down governments, have been done before? When it comes to telling...
I would say that, yeah, like I actually mentioned, it's weird that question comes up. Like I said earlier in the stream, like I don't think that originality plays a big role in storytelling, because I think that storytelling is just a very human thing that human beings have been doing since the dawn of time, since the dawn of mankind. So originality, as the old saying goes, there's nothing new under the sun, as far as that goes. So, you know, when it comes to storytelling, that's why I say, you know, especially to any aspiring authors out there, don't focus on originality. Originality should not be the key focus of your story, like what you're trying to, when you're writing and you're trying to come up with a story. Don't worry about how original your story is. It's really about having a unique outlook, or having a unique take, or mixing things up, incorporating, you know, maybe subversion of tropes or cliches, you know, things of that nature, playing around with it, taking it deeper, farther, or maybe coming at it from a different angle, whereas it could be a serious subject matter, and then you try to spin it and make it a humorous, you know, more satirical type of subject matter. You know, that's how I would kind of approach that type, like when asked that type of question, as far as does originality matter in storytelling? The execution, yes, thank you. Yeah, it's all in the way you deliver it and how you execute your ideas. I mean, you could have two people can have the same idea, but execute it in completely different ways. Absolutely. Nice way to keep the zombies from rotting away over time. Yeah, this is intriguing. This is intriguing. I'm digging this so far. I want to learn a little bit more about this world here.
Stories, developing plots, and building worlds, it is nearly impossible to create truly original work. Originality on the macro level isn't something The Last of Us set out to do. Its setting overall isn't much different from what we've seen before, but what is different and what is unique are the clickers, the cordyceps, the real-life fungus that occurs in our world, just with a twist. What if this strange fungus that takes control of insects, driving them to the highest point, where they clamp on to leaves and stems before a fruiting body protrudes, further spreading? What if that same fungus were to infect humans? What would happen then? What kind of world or creatures would that create?
Like a nightmare fuel, apparently.
Before we examine the world building around the cordyceps fungus and the subtleties of world building done in The Last of Us, let's first take a step back and examine a few things. 3 things that aren't original in fiction, literature, video games, or film are zombies, dystopian post-apocalyptic worlds, and zombie-infested post-apocalyptic worlds. Here are a few examples of this being done before. Perhaps a lesser version of The Last of Us or maybe a more centralized focus of The Last of Us is I Am Legend. One man living in a city amongst infected people who have been turned into aggressive vampire creatures, desperately trying to find a cure. Or how about The Walking Dead? This series is probably most similar to The Last of Us. It has an infected population of zombies.
I liked The Last of Us, like the Will Smith movie, but I haven't read the book though. I believe that it is based on a novel, isn't it? I'll have to read that at some point.
Rugged bandits and morally great characters, all taking place in a post-apocalyptic America.
And The Walking Dead.
We can go further than that. We can look at other mediums too, besides TV. There have been plenty of books, movies, and video games that share similar elements. Perhaps we can look at a film like 12 Monkeys or 28 Days Later, or even the TV show The Walking Dead. There are also lesser serious types like Zombieland, Warm Bodies, and Shaun of the Dead. And even venturing into video games, we have the Fallout series, Left 4 Dead, Dying Light, the Metro trilogy.
I'll tell you right now, I used to play the shit out of Left 4 Dead. Left 4 Dead was my jam back in the day, I have to say. More specifically, Left 4 Dead 2. Left 4 Dead 1 was good. I got a lot of miles out of that game. But Left 4 Dead 2 was where it was at. All the multiplayer. It was all about the multiplayer. It was great. Innovative multiplayer too, for especially for a first-person shooter.
Stalker, DayZ, and dozens of others. I can't possibly name all the books, video games, TV shows, or movies that feature these themes. Even those that I mentioned hardly scratch the surface of this subgenre. There are also a great number of comics, novels, other video games, films, short films, and short stories with similar concept tropes and themes. One look at the apocalyptic and post-apocalyptic fiction Wikipedia page will show you how extensive this genre has been explored. But to that point, why does The Last of Us have such a broad appeal and buy-in? Why does their world feel unique? The short answer to that is that some concepts and genres will always have a place of interest in fiction. It takes a bit more to be considered a great story and to keep the reader, viewer, or player's attention. What does, however, leave a lasting impression and keeps your audience engaged is good writing, which is a simplified way of saying well-written characters, plot, setting, and themes, all told from an effective point of view. But again, what makes The Last of Us unique in this regard? What about it is well-written? This is where a bit of my bias will probably show. And to that point, in my opinion, I think all of those elements of fiction are well-written and excellently done. The characters are sharp and full of agency. The plot is strong, and the themes are both complex and plain, while the whole story is told from an effective point of view to complement each of those other elements of fiction. Each of those are worthy of an essay of their own and can be picked apart and unraveled as a masterclass. But for this video, we're going to look at the setting and how The Last of Us inhabits a familiar place, but does so in a subtle and unique way. And in that same breath, I want The Last of Us to be an example of building immersive and interesting fictional worlds by observing and using the natural world.
That is what I'm talking about. Coming at fiction from all these different types of angles. So like this is, video essay format, but effectively this is what I would consider, if it was in written form, it would be called an editorial. So he's coming at it. So it's not like he's reviewing the game or the show itself, but just more or less coming at it from a specific angle. And I do like this. This is definitely the type of stuff that I would watch like on a regular. This is very intriguing to me. And he's very engaging type of video in the way that he's presenting it as well. I like this. All that aside, though, definitely takes. I say that, but it definitely takes a lot of time. Being someone who also creates content, I would say that it takes a long time to, or a lot of effort at the very least, to produce something of this level of quality.
In The Last of Us, the cordyceps is what kicks off the entire plot of the story. We've seen plot devices like this used before, like mutated flu viruses, artificial viruses, and general genetically modified viruses to be the cause of zombie-like conditions or mass extinction. The Last of Us likely could have followed a similar formula, or just had it be that zombies exist. They took it a step further. They re-examined this trope and added an elemental cause that already occurs in our natural world, just with a twist. The cordyceps, a fungus that is well studied and occurs in our world, but is not possible to infect humans. And as it so happens, from this minor change, we see a ripple effect, spreading and developing the world further. New elements of fear, themes, and world building start to come out. Elements like spores, neural networks, and themes such as humans being the real monster, self-corruption, and the cost of self-preservation. And another interesting element that enhances the immersion of the video games and TV show is that the creatures have an agency of their own. It feels like they belong in this world. They have a presence and a lasting mark that we see nearly everywhere, in subtle and unique ways. In the video game, avoiding spores is a key gameplay element. And because spores can't spread in open areas, people have begun settling the countryside, avoiding underground areas, and always carrying a gas mask with them. There's also extensive world building done in other subtle ways, some of those being in the governments that have now emerged, how they are structured, and what their goals are. We will talk about it a little bit more towards the end when we look at methods we can use to improve our own world building. There's something about the TV show and video games world that feels more real than the traditional fantastical zombie takeover. In part, this has to do with the story largely taking place after the majority of the world-ending events have already happened. But I think that's done intentionally. One thing that many writers struggle with, and is often the first fracture point that breaks your story, is knowing where the starting point is. Understanding the starting point of your story often resolves many of the issues that deal with world building and creating your setting, resolving or making those issues irrelevant. With all that being said, and how this ties back to you as the storyteller, is the need to understand that your setting must be focused. Too much information, relevant or not, can leave your reader or viewer confused and exhausted. Focus on what the reader needs to know, not what you want to show them. Beyond just the cordyceps, the subtle world building that takes place in The Last of Us's narrative is an example of how we can slowly unravel elements of our world. The key here, though, is making sure these elements are important to the characters, the story, and the themes. We'll talk more about this later. An example of this is in the TV show. It isn't until episode 3 that we get a better idea of how the cordyceps fungus spread and how the world ended. Conversation comes up naturally between Ellie and Joel and is largely brief. There's no added monologuing and there's no large info dumps. The same goes with the video game. We aren't beaten over the head at the start with overly explained world-building elements. Many of these world-building elements are done in brief conversations that may be optional between Joel and Ellie, or Joel and the other characters that he is with. A good deal of the setting is revealed in small details encountered along the way, mostly through notes, artifacts, or signage. As a writer, there's a skill in being able to slowly administer the relevant information about the setting and world in a manner that is...
I mean, one thing, yeah, I mean, people, sometimes I feel like the idea of exposition and info dumps are kind of mutually exclusive. I mean, that's my own opinion on it, my own little hot take, if you will. I don't despise exposition. Sometimes it can be, because exposition can be engaging as well. Like, say, for instance, if you're sharing like lore Like if a character, for whatever reason, like a cliche would be if the character comes across a news article, or if they're reading through a book and which reveals, necessary lore or whatever. So there's a little bit like I could see how people be like, oh, well, that's just an info dump. Yeah, but it's part of the story. Like say the character had to get to that book in order to have, it's a payoff. It's like there's a book, the character knows that there's a book that has information that the character needs, and in order to get to the book, it's like an adventure in it and of itself. The character had to survive to get to this point, and then what kind of information is in that book, you know what I mean? So it's like it is a little bit of a, it's earned exposition, if you will. Whereas, an info dump is just like, I feel like the most egregious of info dumps take place early on in the story when you haven't even connected. You have, like, as the reader, like, you haven't even had a chance to connect with any of the characters yet, and the author's already bombarding you with all this information that is neither here nor there in terms of whether or not you care. You're like, okay, well, why do I care? Yes, that's very nice. Yes, the guy owns a farm, he milks cows twice a day, that's great, but why do I care? Why do I care? I don't know why I went farmer over there. Right. And then of course, yeah. And then there's the whole aspect of like taking it too far and just kind of going off on a tangent with it and trying to hone in and keep it relevant to the overall story or the overall narrative. So far, I will state that so far this guy, he's not really going into too much of the advanced stuff. In other words, he's not really saying anything so far that I haven't heard before, but he is presenting it in a very entertaining kind of way, or it's keeps me watching, I should say.
It's both interesting and important. Our goal should only be to showcase our world as it relates to the plot or themes. This does, of course, vary depending on genre and pacing of your story. And in that same tune, it is better that the information be delivered, be relevant to the characters within the scene. Exposition is boring, monologues are boring, and info dumps are boring. The trick is to showcase this wonderful world you've created in a way that is interesting and relevant to the plot and theme.
Milking it. He might be working up to the deep stuff. Yeah, he's milking it. He's milking it with the theatrics.
Being able to see the thing and study what we want to add to our story is, in my opinion, the perfect way to make your world feel real. For the cordyceps, we can see this thing, this fungus, taking over other living creatures in our own world. We don't need to start at ground zero. We have a starting point. And from there, we can form our what-if scenario. What if something similar can infect our own muscle tissue or brains, taking control of our bodies, driving us and turning us into rabid creatures? The creators of The Last of Us saw the same BBC video that I watched.
I mean, another way of describing that is to say it's a gimmick. Your world building, the world building is based on a gimmick, and that gimmick is that it's something that is rooted in reality. With this fungi, this fungi that takes control of human beings, on a fantastical level, which isn't necessarily bad. When I say gimmick, I don't mean that in a derogatory sense, but I mean, it is what it is. It's a gimmick. And I will say that, when it comes to originality, a gimmick might be what sets your work apart from somebody else's work. If you got a good gimmick, sell the gimmick, sell that gimmick. It doesn't have to be cheap. You could go in depth. you could really sell someone. You could really sell readers or viewers if it's a movie based on a gimmick. If you look at marketing of a lot of movies and stuff like that, it is kind of usually revolves around some sort of gimmick, you know. Like you'll hear, like when it starts off, what happens when little Mary Sue gains the power of telepathy? You know, that's a gimmick. You're selling a gimmick. You're saying, oh, a little girl gains the power of telepathy. What's she going to do with it? And then you kind of build a story around that gimmick.
My biology lecture and created this amazing world and story. A quote from the creative director, Neil Druckmann: it was all based on the idea that the more numerous a species becomes, the more likely it is to be preyed on by this fungus. Taking a small, real-life example and then tweaking it, building our what-if scenario, is what we can use to take an already established genre or trope and give it a fresh, new feeling. But where can we look as writers and storytellers to find this inspiration? Not to make light on any global catastrophes, but we can look at current, past, or predicted catastrophes for inspiration to build our post-apocalyptic worlds or to create a large threat to our world. It is common for many fantasy writers and even general fiction writers to use history or historical events to base their plots and even set their worlds within. Borrowing from other cultures, other regions' customs, and traditions should be at the top of your list for looking for inspiration in building real fictional settings. Figures in history are a great option as well, though how this impacts your story setting may vary. While I was in college, one of my biggest distractions in class and while studying was taking things that I was learning and trying to fictionalize them for unique world-building settings or story elements. But you don't need to be in a college science class or history class to come up with these ideas or concepts. There are plenty of free resources, Wikipedias, books, or even documentaries we can use to mine for inspiration and ideas. That is, after all, how The Last of Us began. Basing stories off historical figures or historical retellings isn't anything new. Something that might not be as well used outside of science fiction and fantasy is looking at the natural world for inspiration. As a personal example, one story that I've been working on off and on is based on a rare form of hydrocarbons that were found trapped in ice. The idea came when my professor made an offhand comment about this phenomenon while we were studying oil and gas extraction methods. This brought on the concept for a new world that contained a new resource that was highly desirable. The biggest thing we need to understand about building immersive worlds and developing our setting is that we don't want to show the reader our entire iceberg. Another thing that every fantasy science fiction writer likely has heard at this point is something along the lines of the iceberg method. The readers should only ever see the world-building elements that appear above the water and never the rest of the iceberg. Remember that we need to keep a focus setting and only showcase the elements of our world as it pertains to our characters, plot, and themes. This will make the information feel unique, important, and real.
I would add to that it depending on your story too, because say if it's like epic fantasy, right? So like epic fantasy is really just kind of revolves around world building. So like world building is like the meat and potatoes of epic fantasy storytelling. So like there maybe not necessarily everything that is pertained within the like the narrative or like the setting and whatnot always has to like connect to the story, like the whatever storyline, character storyline, because there could be multiple. Doesn't necessarily have to connect to the story in a significant way, but it might be fun in terms of lore building. So like for instance, like say if you have scenes where the characters are doing something or they're traveling through a town or something like that, there might be like these little nuggets where the reader gets a glimpse of what's going on in the background within these scenes. Like, what are the townspeople doing? What kind of events are going on in the town that might not be relevant to the overall story, but just might be a fun little thing that's unique to that particular town or area within the world at large. So I'd say that there's, you know, with anything, when you're dealing with fiction, there's always these little, you know, caveats. You know, there's no set in stone, you know, type of rules at play, but there are guidelines, you know, and I think that he's doing a good job at kind of covering that here, is what I think so far. You know, so far he's basically giving you the nuts and bolts of world building, the guidelines, if you will. You see, it looks like he's getting into implementing these things. So it looks like we're going to start getting into some of the deeper aspects of it. Yeah. I haven't, it's actually, that is the first for me as well. Right. What's the flora and fauna like in that part of the world? You know, people might want to know that. Like, I say, for instance, okay, say it's epic fantasy, right? And we're talking about, you know, the flora and fauna, whatever, the type of vegetation in that region. It might be, at first you think, oh, that's unnecessary details to know that. Okay. It's unnecessary details. I'm thinking of a scenario right now on the fly of where that there may be a caveat to that guideline or that rule. Say, okay, well, maybe the reader doesn't need to know about the flora and fauna in this scene. It seems like unnecessary details. However, perhaps later on in the series, maybe not the book that you're reading, but maybe a couple books down the road, there's a romantic interest that presents, you know, a flower or something like that to their romantic interest. And that one particular flower, it's known, if the reader has been paying attention, to only grow in a specific region of the land. Hey, I'm just saying, it's an example, you know, it's not important details, but if the reader was paying attention, they would know that little tidbit of information, you know, and it would kind of sweeten the whole experience just a little bit. You know, it's not just a guy giving a flower to his love interest, but it's where that understanding where he had to travel in order to have, you know, have that sort of flower, to even get his hands on it. You know what I mean? Which could kind of heighten the meaning behind the whole thing. Yeah, or creating war materials. War materials. I'm over here talking about love, and you're over there talking about war. You want to make love or war? Well, I'm not asking you specifically. You're like, shit, wine and dine me first.
The Last of Us, the video game and TV show, both have one thing that helps in building its immersive setting and impressive world. Both come from the visual medium. We are given long, wide shots of crumbling cities, desolate highways, and the remains of a different world. We can see signs, what people are wearing, and what this world looks like. How do we invoke similar feelings through the written medium? And how do we showcase our world and learn from the visual medium, like video games and television? This is something that is easier said than done. And then if I told you I knew how to do this with a capital K, I'd feel like a charlatan and a liar. There are, however, ways we can approach our setting as writers to better create and immerse the reader in the world we've created. There's a scene in both the video game and TV show where Joel and Ellie are ambushed. After Afterwards, Ellie asks Joel how he knew it was an ambush, and Joel replies, "I've been on both sides." This small conversation says so much about the character Joel as well as the rest of the world. It is a means of survival, and these tricks have been played over and over again.
It could also be looked at as timeless
I
lessons.
spent a while trying to come up with a simple method that we can use as a quick reference, or at least a general guideline to help us with building our setting. I've mentioned a few times how we want the setting to service the plot, themes, and characters, but haven't really broken down what that means. Here's a simplified method of doing that we can refer to as the 3 R's of making a great setting. Think of the world and the setting as another character in your story. Ask yourself this: what role does this character, the setting, play? Don't tell us in every painstaking detail of every place, location, or history. Treat your world's exposition like a character's backstory. Tell us and show us only the important parts as they service the plot, scene, or the other characters. They should.
I like that. I just want to say I like that little tidbit right there. Treating giving the setting a backstory. What you saying? Giving the setting a backstory, like kind of telling a story with the setting itself, like almost like you could see. Almost like using, like within the setting, you can kind of see what kind of events took place just through the visual or the imagery of the setting itself. So it's almost like you can kind of interpret, okay, what happened here without the author having to tell you, like, tell me some shit went down without telling me some shit went down, that type of thing. There was a firefight! Boondock Saints.
Come up naturally, and different elements can come up in different ways. As an example, an expert on one subject will know more about one thing than a layman or a person who has no expertise. But perhaps that person with no expertise has a strong opinion. This might offer a different perspective of your world. These perspectives will share parts of your world they notice, don't notice, and talk about. How does the setting better reflect your characters, theme, and plot? Use the setting and the world as an amplifier of your character's flaws, strengths, backgrounds, ideals, and personality. The same goes for the themes you are exploring and the plot your characters are following. We can revisit the example about the ambush scene. At the start of that scene, a person enters the road asking for help, but Joel continues on, almost driving the man over, knowing that this is a trap. He knows this because he has tricked people in a...
Stop the show just for a minute here. Rachel Morley, stop it in. I think this is the first time that I've seen you, stop by while I was live. So welcome. I see you around here and there on other streams and everything. This author, Rachel Morley, covered some of her books here tonight. Thanks for checking in. Good to see you. Watching a video here on world building specifically. He's using The Last of Us as kind of like the example. It's nice to see you. Hope you're doing well. I know you got a new novel lined up for, was it this summer or late spring? The third in your series. So congratulations on that. Perhaps I have to get you on the show sometime if you're not afraid to well, I don't mean it like that, but you know what I'm saying. If you want to come on, talk about it. Maybe we could do that lining up to your new release if you'd be so inclined or interested.
Similar way before. In this single scene, in a few lines of dialogue, we know that Joel has done bad things and learned more about the brutal world that they live in, as well as Joel himself. We learn what is required to survive, and the clickers aren't the only thing to fear. We also see a scene later of the desensitization of humanity in Ellie's reaction. setting in reality can mean a great number of things. The main one here being your setting needs to feel like the characters in the story can live here. The biggest thing this hammers out is plot holes and builds immersion. To use a term that I haven't exactly seen used very much, except in science fiction and fantasy magic systems, is the hard and soft world building. Hard being very grounded, and soft being lesser so, within more fantastical elements. This is a sliding scale, and is only there to offer a suspension of disbelief for our readers. We can think of this as a barter system as well. The example being The Last of Us stays true to all the technology, cars, vehicles, and weapons of the time period of when the world ended, but gas and other resources that might have perished are still acquirable. We want to minimize the hand-waving, or at least make the hand-waving elements of our setting the less important ones. Even soft worlds and worlds that are very imaginative still feel grounded in their own reality. We only need to acquire the reader's buy-in. Using these guidelines will help develop more believable settings, making the world you've created feel more real. Building immersion is one of the tricks we writers must set out to do to make our stories resonate and entertain our audience. There's a time and a place for everything in our story, and setting, world building, and atmosphere are elements that should never be shoved into our reader's face. The trick here is to make them care and make the setting echo our themes and plot while having impact on our characters. Doing that and creating a story that does this is the subtle art of world building.
Becoming entranced by the music. Western. Milking it.
If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. This video took a little bit longer than most of my other videos.
No doubt.
But was really enjoyable to make. I actually had a lot of fun revisiting some of the scenes and also watching along with the show as I made this video. I had to re-record a couple of segments and clips of this, mostly because of some audio issues, as well as a couple of other technical issues. But as I was recording it, a couple of other ideas kind of came into mind as it relates to building our world and writing an immersive setting. There's an element where we approach our writing and we approach our setting very meticulous, looking at the details and the techniques that we can use to employ. Most notably, the way that we want to reflect our themes and our plot, and also make the setting sort of matter to our characters, or at least from our characters' point of view. And I think that approach and keeping that in mind is really important and really effective. But there's also an element of cool, or I guess the rule of cool. I think it was Brandon Sanderson that coined the term. But the idea being that you should always use the coolest thing, or the thing that's the most interesting or exciting to your story, or to your plot, or to your setting. However, there is a caveat with that. Too much of one thing can often not be a good thing, right? We don't want to dump a whole handful of salt into a dish that we're preparing. But pinches of salt and bits of salt are always, good and enjoyable. So when we approach sort of creating our setting and make an immersive setting, it is important that we think of the mechanics and the story elements and the story craft concepts. But there is also a caveat that we should also look to make our story interesting and matter. This kind of goes back to the hard and soft world building. It kind of depends on what kind of story you want to tell. On one end, if you want your story to be hyper realistic, may sometimes not have as much flexibility to and creativity to add that rule of cool. But in the other breath, if you go to the other end, something that is much softer in its world building can sometimes break immersion, and too much freedom and wiggle room with our setting can make the world feel fake. That's all to say, this was a really fun video to make. I forgot how emotional and how powerful the video games were, as well as as the shows are airing, as how well they captured the essence of some of these scenes, themes, and the setting. As I'm finishing this video and kind of redoing this outro, the TV show's not over yet, so looking forward to kind of catching up and watching those more. But that's all to say, I hope you found this useful, and I hope that you learned a little bit of something about storytelling and creating your setting. There's a lot to learn, and it's sometimes hard to break down every little thing in technique. But I think we can still pick out little bits and pieces from different mediums of entertainment and implement those in our own writing and our own storytelling. Let me know what you're wrestling with. Part of the process of coming up with video ideas and article ideas comes from the viewers and the readers as well. I'm always interested to hear what you have to say, what you're working on, and even what your successes are. So let me know kind of what you're wrestling with. I try to reply to every comment.
Well, that was a good video. Appreciate you sharing that with me. Subscribe to his channel. Be keeping tabs for sure. He seems like a really bright guy. I see you guys chatting it up here. Yeah, I have. So this is what I keep. I still have the old school. I got three ring binder here, and I keep it packed full. I got folders in here, all the lined paper and several folders in here, and then I got all these little notes, scrap paper notes, so that you never know, because you're talking about Crosby here. He's saying I'm confident I'd stop having ideas if I could. If you could write them down or couldn't write them down. I only seem to have them at the worst possible time. So like keeping like a little. What else do I have? I also have this. Remember these little 5 stars? I got one of these. I keep one handy. So if something comes to me, sometimes I've woken up before. Woken up from like a dream, something weird happens or whatever, or something happens like in a dream, like a scenario or something, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like, I wonder if that could work. And then I write it down, come back to it later on, and I'm like, all right, that doesn't really make sense. But nevertheless, these little, you never know, like you say, when these little ideas are going to strike. So I see Rachel has the sticky notes. So what do you guys think about that world building? World building is a huge topic. I know it's very popular on Authortube. World building in general is just a very popular topic to talk about within like the author sphere, indie sphere. Because I think there's just so much to it. It's the icing on the cake, if you will. Because you have characterization and you have plotting, which both of those in it and of themselves, they're their own thing. But then you have setting, which in setting is the world building. Like world building is just a part of the setting. But then I know, have you guys ever experienced like where you've read stories that have like the white room syndrome, where it's like the characters, it's almost like you don't really know where the hell, like you have no sense of environment, like you don't really know where the characters are. Like just very, like when you read a story that has very, you could tell like when you read a story that has very weak setting, like that's where that comes into play, where it's like, you know, the characters could effectively be anywhere because it really makes no difference to what, like how the author is delivering the story. I have experienced that before. And then like say it can be jarring too, because like say depending on what the actions and what's happening in the scene, so if they're like battling, if it's like two characters and they're like fighting each other, you know, a sense of environment and what's going on around them would really help the scene, because you know it definitely has to do with like the characters like sense of awareness of what's going on around them. They would be in a hyper state sense of awareness at that point. But I'm just kind of spitballing right now, FYI. I'm kind of at the end of the stream here, but I see a couple of you guys, a couple of you showed up just hanging out. So if you guys, you know, anything you want to, you know, chime in with before I kind of wrap things up. Yeah, but you're going to lose it. You're going to lose it. I'm telling you. You think that, I've been guilty of it before myself. You think that, and then next thing happens, you know what happens? You're like, you get hit with that weird feeling like, shit, I feel like I'm forgetting something. And as soon as you get hit with that feeling like, I feel like I'm forgetting something, you've lost it. You've lost it. It's gone. And then maybe it'll come back later on. Maybe. Are you saying if you forget it, it wasn't that great of an idea to begin with? Is that what you're saying? Don't get you started. Well, maybe we could have a discussion about it. That's what I'm saying. Maybe we could have a discussion about it. Yeah, that was a good presentation. Definitely, he knows what he's doing with it, with his presentation. It was organized. I like when content creators put the chapters in the videos. So if you want to, you know, skip around, I like that. You know, it's an extra step, but it doesn't take very long. It's pretty easy to do as well. And you can tell, you know, there was some writing involved. So you can kind of get a feel for like his writing style as well. Like what content creators who make videos like that, in other words, or if they do like editorials and whatnot, write essays, you like it's scripted videos. I mean, you can kind of get a feel for their writing style as well, even though it's a different form of writing from fiction, but you can still kind of get a feel for like their authorial voice. And you know, some people are more effective than others when it comes to that, delivering video essays, that is. Because it's like video essays, as you could tell, he was like relying heavily upon background music for a lot of the video. And that is kind of like a trick, if you will, for a lot of these video essays, for creating a sense of intrigue, even when there may be nothing to be intrigued about per se, as far as what's happening in the video. But the magic of just, you add a little bit of music to something and suddenly it's, you know, becomes so much more interesting. Case in point, Case in point. Hey, we're just hanging out. We're getting loose. We're chilling. It's the chill stream. You know what I mean? You dig, baby? You dig? We're just loosening up. Didn't I say this was the uninebriated stream? I feel like I'm not drunk enough for this. Yes. Let there the lyrical series. The lyrical series. Let There Be Fire. I have it on my TBR. Rachel says, I think I narrowed it down with my series as it's based on the Silk Road and jumbled up the geography to make a fresh take. And then have the environment dictate culture. Yeah, that is one way. That is an aspect of shaping culture, taking that into consideration. The environment. Anytime, okay, I might hold you to it, Rachel. I might hold you to it. Anytime, she says, anytime you want to have a chat live, are you saying live? I'm down. But I warn you, I am one of the most awkward, spicy disaster chaos goblins on the planet. Okay. On that note, song's over. Song's over, ladies and gentlemen. You don't have to go home, but you got to get the hell out of here. Listen, I hope y'all had some fun. I hope y'all discovered something new, but don't fret, because guess what? I will be back here for you next week, same time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's 6 p.m. Pacific. Have a good week. Thank you guys in the chat.